first time using this, so let's
Okay.
see if it works. If you look on Facebook, and if you
Oh yes. Here it's.
okay, so it is live on the Coffee Diaries. I see it now. Just yep. So we're live on Coffee Diaries. Now I'm gonna go to YouTube. I mean to Facebook.
On Coffee Diaries.
I hear something.
Go to YouTube.
Do you hear that? Or is that your phone?
That was my phone. I just shared the link to my channel on Facebook.
Okay. Okay. So so it is on Facebook. Good. So
yes,
that worked. Let's share it to. Okay, folks, we're going to start in 1 second. Just trying something new. Okay, and then I'll go to LinkedIn. I don't even know how to view it on here. Okay, so we're going to begin in 1 second. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it, I don't know how to check to see if it's on LinkedIn. Okay.
Can you link me to your LinkedIn channel?
Say that again?
Can you link me to your LinkedIn channel?
I'm sure I can, but I don't even know. I am trying to figure out how to. I'm not very familiar with LinkedIn. I rarely use it, so I'm trying to. What is your what?
I don't even know what my channel is.
Yeah, so maybe we could figure it out
yeah,
later. Yeah, so how do, oh, okay, wait a minute. No, okay. How do I check to see where my posts are? All right, so let's just begin and we'll figure all that out later. So, but it worked.
It's on, yes. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it worked in general.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're live on Facebook. We're live on Coffee Diaries YouTube. So hello everyone on YouTube, and we should be live on LinkedIn. So hello everyone there, and welcome to the Coffee Diaries podcast.
Grand Rising, Eddie.
Grand Rising.
And
how are you?
How's your life?
Yeah, I got to take some deep breaths today. It's a little frustrated, as I was mentioning, like little things build up throughout the day. And then it was like a mess in our home. You know, kids were playing and toys were everywhere. And because we went to my mom's yesterday we had to postpone the Christmas celebrations, and I always tell them, my family, not to get much toys because I don't want to collect all the plastics and things like that, but they can't help themselves. And so it was a mess, just toys everywhere. And not just the toys, but the paper, the cardboard, like everything. And I'm just walking around. All they're interested in is playing, naturally. They're like, toy. And they're just opening things, throwing things. And I'm just walking behind them, cleaning things up. And it seemed like I couldn't keep up with it. So I got a little frustrated, and I yelled something to myself, and then I felt bad afterwards because I didn't want them to feel like it was their fault, and I had to tell them it wasn't their fault, and I was tired and frustrated, so
Yeah.
yeah. How are you?
I've had a very relaxing time, Ade. It's been an enjoyable, restful period. A lot of quiet and silence. So
Yeah.
that's been good.
That's good.
Good. Yeah. So and it's nice to have this time off and being able to sleep in. Just to have those 1 or 2 extra hours in the morning, and not have to go somewhere. It makes you wonder that we spend so much of our lives having to be somewhere else, and a lot of time it's a rush to go from here to there to there to there, and we get so used to it, it becomes part of our everyday life, having to be somewhere else. And I always used to think that we should get, for those people who work Monday to Friday, they should also get paid for Sunday evening. Because we spend Sunday evening a lot of times thinking about going to work on the Monday morning.
Yeah.
So we don't really enjoy that time on the Sunday evening. But I guess that comes down to what we've spoken about before, which is being present in the moment and be in that Sunday evening rather than thinking about the next day of going to work.
Yeah. It's seems like the way our culture is set up, and I mean, we're always on the go and thinking about what's next. And as we talked about in the last podcast, we are bombarded with advertisements and ads and everything else. And we source our sense, our value, our sense of self from being productive. So if I do these things, then it will satisfy this sense of being good enough. And it's so ingrained in the culture, and since we're from the school year age and up, they start this in school, and so it's only natural that this thought of what's next. What's next. So we can't wait until Friday. Because Friday is, okay, the weekend's coming, I'm going to be able to rest. And I wonder if work should be, not that there's any right or wrong way. I guess the question is, can there be something that we do for a living, or work, where Friday comes and we feel disappointed? Like, oh, Friday's coming. I got to take a break from this that I enjoy doing, that feels fulfilling. So yeah, instead it's this. Yeah, I can't wait for Friday, and then Friday's here, and I think already many of us already have in the back of the mind, as you were talking about, the impending doom of Monday. So many people on Fridays, you do whatever you do on Friday, maybe spend some, and there's a lot of catching up, so if you're living in a home with kids, then like for me, laundry, this, that, and all this stuff that maybe I wasn't able to pay a lot of attention to during the week. Now, on the weekend, catching up with that. Maybe if we're lucky, going out to nature or doing something like that, and then back on the hamster wheel, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, when you talk of impending doom, I think I spent most of my education years in impending doom.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, waiting for it to finish. And I think I think you might have mentioned it before. Neil deGrasse Tyson said something. How much of a tragedy that is that
Yes.
we go to school and really it should be, I wish, I miss school and I can't wait for the summer holidays to end.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't recall ever thinking that once in all my time. It was how long could we make the summer holidays last? Yeah, and so we get onto this treadmill that I don't even think we even know exists.
Mm,
It's just become part of the fabric of the world that we live in.
yeah.
The hamster wheel that you go on, school, college, work, and you do it because I guess we've been programmed into it.
Mm.
But there's another way. And maybe it's going to be having to create a whole new system which looks at life a very different way.
Yeah.
Because it's been done. We've seen it in Indigenous and First Nations communities around the world, how even the idea of work, of how we see it, is very different to them.
Mm.
And I read an article a while ago now, and it talked about in Indigenous communities that the idea of work and play, there was no real difference. It was one and the same thing. So maybe it's to create a education system which brings out finds the passion or the inherent purpose in that individual, rather than programming them to become part of the system.
Yeah. Can you repeat that last part?
Yeah, so finding out their inherent passions. What are they passionate about? What do you enjoy to do?
Mm.
So they become kind of scientists of their own life, and they continue to ask questions. What is this? How does that work? Where does this go? How does light do this? Who am I?
Yeah.
Can I fly to the moon? Can I time travel? These simple questions, that we, and we encourage these questions. And I think that from encouraging questions in another, we then allow ourselves to encourage questions in ourselves.
Mm. Yeah. The questions are important. And a lot of times we give kids the answers, the so-called answers. No, it's this way. This is the way this is the right way to look at the world. So and the kids, they sometimes look at me with this baffled expression, like, oh, okay, because I'm asking them to believe.
Mm.
So essentially, what we are doing is asking kids, trust me, believe me, you are Ade, you are Ron. Ron, say, Ron, mommy, daddy. We start these labels. This is this, and this is that, and so um, obviously, kids they rely on us for protection and safety. Starts with the mother. They don't really look at themselves as separate from the mother when they're a baby. It's just like one entity, and they're feeding off of the mother, and they feel like they're one with the mother. And then at a certain point, they the idea somehow comes into them that they're this separate entity. And so there is this I, this awareness, like I am. And then, I mean, they don't have any of these concepts, but then I am this, I am that, you know, um, I am, and then you are. So if there's this I, there's this you. And so at an early on, we instill this into kids, this reality. So essentially, we are creating what I think of, or what the ancients call Maya. So there is a reality there, but it's not a reality as we perceive it necessarily. And so that kind of works into the topic today. Where's the beginning of the wave? Because you and I were having these conversations of, why do we label things? And along with labeling things, we value certain things over another. We come up with our laws of right and wrong, good or bad. And I'm not saying that there's no usefulness in any of these things. For a society to function, maybe we need some of these things. But when I think we realize that we have created this reality, then it gives us more room and freedom to be able to create something else. So and also to realize that there are other ways of living that were already in place. So we can learn from the ancients, we can learn from indigenous people who had different ways of looking. They basically had a different reality, basically living in a different world, essentially. I mean, one can say that we're all living in our own individual worlds, you know, like we are all sort of creating this reality. I'll see and experience something one way, and you, Ron, will see and experience something in another way. And I may think that everyone is seeing and feeling and experiencing the world as I do, but we know that that's not true. Um, so it's interesting how we see this manifest in our culture. We see how it's manifesting in the news media. We see how sometimes groups of people are all sort of thinking along one line, one way, one belief system. It could be like anything, maybe Democrat or Republican, left or right. And really feeling invested in these belief systems, but do we really question where it's coming from? Or like, when I was mentioning to you the other day that we have experts in certain fields. Like there's an expert in psychology or expert in a certain science or finance, the mass expert economist. But yeah, that may be true, but we've created that. Or I should leave it as a question. Have we created that? Have we created the field in which the person is an expert in? Haven't we created the concepts and the terminology that the person uses and the way that they use it? And haven't we created the patterns? So, 1 + 1 = 2, or, after 1 is 2, after 2 is 3. So there's a pattern that the expert uses, and then everyone agrees on that pattern. Yes, they have come to this final conclusion. And so they know it's basically a knowledge of the program, so, but the program is a program. So and the program was created by whoever creates programs, I guess starting with language and the way that we communicate and things of that nature. So I find it very interesting.
And this notion, if we think of an expert, it kind of suggests that they know this topic or this thing. And that, I think, kind of keeps it standing still. If we take away the word, the label expert, and there's always an ongoing discovery. So somebody who was an expert in 1940 in a particular field, that field has now moved on. And if we look at if we take away the word expertise, and we're all just trying to figure it out as we go along.
Yeah.
And there may be people who have certain knowledge in a particular area, but does that make them an expert? Are there experts in life? Is there an expert at being a human? I would suggest maybe that we're all taking steps as we go along. And I think something really profound happens when we're growing up. We grow up, and with our parents, we think they know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we grow up and we think our teachers know everything. And then one day it hits you when you're 20, 25, 30, 45. You're at the same age that your parents were at this particular point, and you don't know jack. And what you're doing is the best you can at that particular time.
Yeah.
And I think with that kind of openness, if we can come with that, then that leads to an openness with ourselves. We're still learning about a particular thing, because maybe us as a human species are just beginning. Maybe we are still at elementary school level at, say, the age of 6 or 7, where it comes to universal consciousness. We're just at the beginning.
Yeah.
we're still a lot of time identified with this small self ego. We're still fighting wars. We're still having base arguments. So maybe we're just at the beginning. Mm. And this knowing, and it comes a lot of times as well in what we call non-dual practice, that it's thought oftentimes that, or it seemed to be, that the understanding who you are is the end game. Maybe that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
The 7-year-old.
Yes, yeah.
And from there, and most of us are not there yet, it would seem so. So we're in a learning, all of us in a learning process. And we can see this because the very things that we need for our survival as a species, we destroy.
Yeah.
The very air that is required to breathe, we pollute. Mm. And the very water that we require to drink, we throw toxic substances into it.
Yeah.
Now, if we went to a nursery school and asked them, does that make sense? Every 5-year-old in the room would say no.
Yeah.
So we're still learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think maybe that point where you step out and you see that these so-called experts, and we could all learn from them, that they're just like us. Mm. And maybe it's about creating now a new way of living. Because sometimes you hear someone say, you heard it there are no jobs. There are thousands of jobs because the rivers need to be cleaned up. The seas need to be cleaned up. The mountains need to be cleaned. The air needs to be cleaned. There are still homeless and hungry people. So there are thousands of jobs. But it's good that they're not the jobs that are being paid for, are not valued.
Yes.
So can we look at it then a different way? Because there's loads of work to do, isn't it? There's lots of work to do. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of work to do. So how can we move to a way where this work is valued?
Well, yeah, I think that's the key word, value. There's something beautiful about individual autonomy, but there is this there is this, what is it called, there was this term, rugged individualism, that was, I think that term was around probably since the 70s. Basically, it sums up, that as long as I'm not breaking any so-called laws, then I have the right to my individual freedoms and the liberty to earn a certain amount of wealth. There's certain liberties that we have that was in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I mean they didn't apply to slaves, and and so it was only for a certain, here in the West, a certain group of people, and in other places. So I think part of what we have lost from the indigenous way of thinking, and I'm being very broad with that, but one of the Like, for example, the idea of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Um, so, or I am because you are. Is it I am because you are, or I am because we? It might be I am because you are. Um, but it's one of those, and
Yeah.
basically, it's the importance of community, the importance of working together, finding a a common, um, considering the other person. So if I do this, how is it gonna? Maybe it's within the so-called laws, but how is it gonna affect my neighbor? How is it gonna affect other people? As I tell you a lot, I love watching geese. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I go to a hmm, I go to a spot in nature and I watch the geese swimming in the lake. And sometimes from my home, I can even hear them. When they're flying, they when they take off, they make a noise. All of them together, they go, "Arr!" They fly off. And when they fly off, um, the they're in harmony. I forget the name of what it is they do, but they're flying together. They're like in a kind of like a V shape. Um, and when they're on the lake, they're working together and very peaceful, and even when they fight, they have a fight, and then they flap their wings after, and they let go of the energy, and then they just swim along and back. There's no holding of resentment or anything like that. At least I don't think so. Um, so in some areas, humans do that, uh, and I think if we have the power, we have the intelligence to be able to create something really beautiful if we start to work together and consider each other. So, going back to what you talked about, yeah, it would be the ideal thing. The value the jobs of cleaning the rivers, the oceans, coming up with alternative energy sources, which we are doing in some ways, but it should be a priority. You know, we still value certain things over that, it seems. Like we're spending a lot of money on our armed forces and military, billions and billions of dollars that could go towards things that I think will help, like to strengthen ourselves, like to defend ourselves from natural the damage that we are doing to the environment. So I think that should be the number one priority. It makes sense, and there's a lot of people that are talking about that. So how to get people on board, and how to get our politicians or the people that make the laws and the policies that can be put into place to help create this change. It seems I sometimes feel a little bit hopeless with our political system here in the West. I mean, there's so much division and conflict, and I don't really trust, and a lot of people don't trust the politicians. As you and I know, big corporations have their um, money in it, so the politicians are being influenced. I mean, there's so much that's going on. Um, but as you often talk about, we can, what part of this this podcast is about is planting seeds. So even though it may feel discouraging or overwhelming, or like we're so up, or our heads are, the level of shit has gone up so high, that we can't get out of it. But um my intention, I really think more and more nowadays just about the generations to come, because it seems like the seeds that we plant today are going to, and this goes back to thinking about the community, thinking about people other than ourselves. The color temperature changed. Okay.
I was thinking, Ade, that sometimes we feel discouraged because it seems so big, this thing we're up against. Maybe part of the system is to make us feel discouraged.
Mm.
So if we have these feelings, maybe that's been trained into us to think that these thing that we're up against is so huge, there's no way it can be overcome.
Yeah.
So our feeling of discouragement is a tool that is used to keep us in this very position. So I think if we are come up against what seems like an insurmountable force, and we feel discouragement, and we recognize that this discouragement is part of the way to keep the system and me where it is, we can then look past that and say, oh, I see. That's one of the tools. That's one of the tricks. And maybe it seems like that most movements have not were not gained by politics. Politics had to be driven, kicking and screaming to take on these concepts. So women had to march, African people had to protest and die for for just basic rights. Indigenous people had to fight for their land. So it wasn't politics that changed it. It was individuals.
Yeah.
So maybe it's rather than ask those people who've got a vested interest in keeping it the same, is to just go on a new road.
Yeah.
And one by one, and let those see for themselves the direction you're going in.
Yeah.
And I think that way, you don't then need to preach, you don't then need to try to persuade. They will see what it is you're doing, and they will feel it, and they will go with you, which is how I think most movements work, because intuitively, we know that all human beings desire the same things. Fresh water, clean air, and a home to live in.
Yeah.
And if we see anybody embarking on a process of trying to get that for every single human being, something in us will connect because we know that feeling.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go to the people who have the vested interest in the politicians. They will have to come on board when the number becomes big enough, which happened with women's rights and the end of slavery. and indigenous rights back. And it's happening right now, really. I mean, I've, over the last 2 years, I mean, because I guess I'm more eager to learn and more connected to these things, I've learned more about First Nations histories around the world, in America, in Australia, the Maoris. I've learned more about the protests going on. I've learned more about the reclaiming of African art. I've read more about reclaiming old languages. I've seen more articles about learning indigenous languages again, in the First Nation spirituality. I've learned more about that in this last 2 years than I have in my whole life. I just don't think these things are put on the mainstream. But so there are people around the world, which we talked about, who are doing their little bits.
Yeah.
But they're not doing it alone, because these threads are like spiders' webs everywhere. This connects to this, connects to this, connects to this. And we're all doing the same thing. We're all learning. We're all saying, okay, if they're not going to do it, let's do it, which is what we are doing right now. We said, wouldn't it be interesting to speak to people who we want to speak to? So we started it from a simple discussion, the Coffee Diaries. In fact, from a simple joke, Ade, you're drinking too much coffee. Yeah, from a single joke.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a great time to talk about your poem, The Wave.
Oh. Should I read it or?
Yeah, I think it'll be, because this is where the inspiration for today's show came from.
Okay.
About the many drops, the waves.
I'll read it. It's right here. Okay. Okay, so this is something I wrote back in December 28th, 2019. It was just a post. Yes, at times we may secretly think that we are more evolved than others, but we come to find out that we are just waves on the ocean. Each wave is different in size and shape, but each wave has a beginning and end. And at the end, each wave will crash back into the ocean and return to its essence as water, which it always was.
So there, Ade, you mentioned laws. It seems like in your poem, you're not talking about human laws, you're talking about cosmic and universal laws of connection. So when we say laws, this law, what are we referring to?
Yeah.
It seems like you're referring to not the laws of can't do, you're going to get fined for doing that. Mm-hmm. You're talking about something different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much in alignment with what we've been talking about. I mean, at the essence, it pretty much, you know, there's this. There's this feeling of I am. I exist. So like when I turn towards that, a sort of shift in energy takes place, and just kind of, because it's no longer a seeking of something outside to fulfill something, like this movement outward, which is sort of imagination. It's like, maybe it's sort of play of the mind or whatever. I don't know what it is, you know, but just the shift in of recognizing that I am. Everything comes from this place.
Mm. So, can you explain then what happens sometimes when we have seems to be great openings and we sense this connection?
Yeah.
So, in your experience, when sometimes this goes, what's happened? You felt it, you know the connection to be real because you feel it in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, when something happens, where has that knowing connection gone for you?
Hmm.
Have you forgotten, or is it just, oh, you tell me?
Yeah. It hasn't gone. It there was this period of time where I would think that it has gone and there's this movement to get it. And really what that was is like, the I'll say the Ade character, if you look at it in a play, like being very being convinced that Ade was different character. Like there's this spiritual Ade who's got it. There's this Ade who doesn't have it. There's this Ade who has lost it, but it's just one Ade. And so when I'm having an experience, when an experience is happening, it's just I am is having this experience. So there's an experience taking place. And so there's just this realizing that experience is taking place. This is still the I am. And the only difference is now is it's not just a mind, a theory or a concept that was taken on from a quote unquote spiritual teacher or something. Like it's just, oh, okay, there's experience. So there, this, and it's hard to talk about these things without using language and using certain I'm very I don't like using these concepts that I've gotten from somewhere else, so sometimes I just, it helps for me just to say, oh, this is me, like in my own way, rather than, oh, I need to, just kind of confirming that vocally, or sometimes just singing something. Music is really good with that, because it just kind of like it just gets out of this sort of analytical sort of, okay, am I this, or it's just, yes, there's nothing else that can be, I'm whatever the experience I'm having now, whatever what we call confusion. See, all of this stuff comes out of these labels, what I call confusion. So
Mm-hmm.
underneath the label, and that's what part of what the poem was the what I wrote was talking about is before all of that, there is water, so we can say the everything that comes is coming out right now is the different waves. So my voice, these vibrations, everything that's coming out right now are the waves on top of the ocean of what I'm calling the I am, or I is another wave. And so these are all all creations, and and to be honest, I've gotten kind of a little bit bored with the terminology, and with calling it anything. It feels stale. That's why I talk to you a lot about language. And when I go out into nature, I just make noises and sing and do things like that, and watch and feel and listen. But to have these conversations, words and language are necessary. Um, yeah. So the one thing that is, and you mentioned it before in a way, about when I said it can feel discouraging, the idea of getting out of this sort of reality. And you said that that's part of the sort of conditioning that was put upon us, or that we put upon ourselves, in some way, that it's part of, let's just say it's part of the program of, and there's other part of these programs, the idea of punishment, the idea if you don't fall in line. Now, when we're the idea of blasphemy, the, oh, you're playing God or something, or don't do that. Look for some other high being or high spiritual person to tell you, to put you in line, to tell you how you should live. Don't trust yourself. Don't trust what's here. Don't trust your intuition. Don't allow your authentic expression to come out. In some ways, that is what we've created. And so I find to challenge those things, challenge them within myself, ask questions. Is that true? um I am here, I am. I I don't, but, and I don't know. That's the other thing, is what we talk a lot about, the black hole of I don't know. So I don't know what's at the other end of that event horizon, what we can call the cosmic horizon. Um, so being in that space of I am here, and I don't know. I am this and I don't know what this is. I I I experience this reality. I live by some of the laws, and and experience and see how how the reality was set up, how society is set up, and I see it, and I live by some of these laws, but and there's a certain truth there, but also I don't know what it is, because how can you know what it is? So I don't know what it is. And what and it's a very powerful thing to realize, not to know what it really is at its essence, to know that I am, but to also the paradox of not knowing what it really is, um, at the essence of it, you know.
I think that's why. So the poem that you wrote today, it expressed all of that in 50 words, and you did it in about 40 seconds.
Yeah.
To explain it takes half an hour.
Exactly.
And so I think you talked about the music and the beat to it, which is, we get that in feeling straight away. To describe a beat of how it feels is almost impossible. You've got to use all these words.
Yeah.
And which is, I guess, one of the reasons why you and I have in some ways developed a shorthand.
Yeah.
We came up with black hole of I don't know, and we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We talk about going off the edge, and we know what we're talking about. We can't explain it.
Yeah.
But we know what we're talking about. Getting radical. We can't explain it, but we know what we're referring to, kind of, in a way, but we get it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these, we begun by talking about expertise. We dismantled expertise. We're saying we don't know, but let's go with it. And it may be uncomfortable, but can we be comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Can we be comfortable feeling frustration? Oh, there's frustration inside of me. Oh, interesting. There's doubts. Oh, interesting. Oh, doubts come today. Interesting. Oh, let's have a laugh. Hello, doubt. Hello, uncomfortability. Frustration. Oh, interesting. Let's explore that. Interesting. Where does it go? And then there comes from there, there's a freedom, there's a playfulness, isn't there?
Yeah.
Can we describe what it's like to be comfortable with frustration? Because I think if we did that, we would have to laugh a bit. Because it would just be funny, and we're not so, it's serious, but we're not taking ourselves seriously. We're passionate.
Yeah.
But this thing that we're doing, we can laugh and joke about. And what's that track? The Rastaman Vibrations album that you posted today. And it's one track. The Zion train is coming my way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if we can take this into this flavor, this marination of ideas, and let's go with it and see where it goes.
Yeah. I think Bob knew it. He expressed it through the music. Like, get up, stand up for your right. So I think what his soul was saying is this: I'm sick and tired of the schism, the isms. That's the defining, all of these isms, yeah.
You know where that mighty God is a living man. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Speaking to Sila and the opportunity to have that conversation and go deeper into these lyrics, deeper into the vibrations, deeper into what they're talking about. There's no separation between the non-duality of Rastafarian and what I've seen spoken of in satsangs.
Yeah.
Of course, it's come from a different language, come from a different way of being, but it's the same. These are deep truths, deep and really get into it, and really, and actually it's mind opening, because now you go back to the lyrics and you kind of, yeah.
Like I and
That's,
I.
yes.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Sila, for our audience that's listening, he was a guest on our podcast on, I think, episode 7, where we talked about the Rastafari. And so that's what we're talking about. You can go back to take a look at that episode.
Yeah, I would encourage those who are interested in it just to go back, because I feel that we learn a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we've learned a lot from everybody who's come onto the show.
Yeah.
And that's been fascinating. Your cousin, was
Tanisha,
talking about some stuff which is just, very powerful. A different way of looking at things, but she didn't frame it in what we said before about this spiritual language. She framed it in her experience.
Yeah.
But if we had heard that in a saxang, we would have been breathing deeply, and not because she was taught it, not because someone had told her to say this, because she experienced it in an actuality. Humility wasn't something she tried to do, is because of her experiences.
Because of her experiences, yes. And she has had a lot of, see, and this goes back to what you were talking about I am experiencing frustration, and just experiencing and being aware of. I'm experiencing anger. Now, for some reason, it's not the experience, it's not the frustration, what we call frustration. So we call it frustration. That's the word that we put to it. But what is frustration? Like, what is frustration? So, and is it different? Is it different than anger? Is it different than, what if it is, okay, if we take away the word frustration, we take away frustration and we feel something like, what is it? Maybe something is not going our way, So I'm trying, like, for example, I was trying to use this new software where OBS, as you know, and it just wouldn't work out. Things wouldn't go the way that I wanted to. And there was this feeling of frustration. Now, there's the frustration is, okay, well, things aren't going the way that I want it to. And there's what I call frustration here.
Ade, one thing there. Mm-hmm. You said let go of the word frustration. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you let go of not going my way?
Not going my way. Yeah.
So we've let go of that as well. And if you can continue.
Okay. So what is here is sensation in the body. There's a sensation of like a contracted feeling, but that is also something I've labeled that way.
So can we get rid of that?
Yeah, so let's get rid of the contraction. And that's become a very popular term nowadays. So we got rid of the contraction. You see, when I got rid of the contractions, actually everything went away. It was kind of funny. uh,
So what are you saying then? You the words, the frustration, not going my way, got rid of the word contraction.
oh, I'll put another label.
Okay.
The other label that was coming up is, oh, the mind creates all of this.
Can we get rid of that?
Let's put away mind creates all of this. The other thought, what to do next. Put away. It's okay. So this is the other thing that's coming. It's funny because memory knows to look back at the diaphragm area to label contraction. So and this is where I usually start singing. And this is where something Yuji has says comes up. Rastaman vibration, yeah, positive. Iron vibration, yeah, positive. Whoa. You know, yeah. Yeah. So going back to Tanisha, my cousin, one of the things that you had said is she experienced the, I think, because she had, because of her situation. Now Tanisha is my cousin. She's a guest we had on our podcast, and she has what we may call some physical disabilities, and she is confronted with pain and different what we call emotions and things of this nature. So she in a way was forced to be presented in these with these things, with all of these things that maybe throughout the day maybe we're not faced with as much. So I think one of the things is she was able to look at it in all these different ways. Like she was a scientist. And so she had this beautiful, like, because of the experience of having to live with really bad chronic and debilitating pain, which I'm calling it that. You see, I'm labeling it that. Now her experience with it and her sense of being, I imagine there's this different experience. She is experiencing it in her own way. But the result of all of this is what you and I noticed is like this kind of like spiritual master in her own right, very simply being who she is. She was just expressing these teachings in a very simple way. She didn't know that she was, but like she was just in a matter of fact way. all of these things that we will learn from, she was like her own Tao, all these things that we'd learn from all these sitting on the spiritual mat and everything, all these spiritual gymnastics and things that we do. And without her even knowing it, she was just giving these teaching, a walk-in sort of teaching, a living example, like the geese, like the trees, like nature.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, like yourself, like we are, like when we are in our most authentic expression.
Yes. And as well, what you just did 5 minutes ago, I think it's really powerful. How instead of going out, we went in.
Yeah.
And for a brief moment, there was nothing to say.
Yeah.
Because we looked past all these things that we got occupied by, and for a moment, there was nothing to say. Can we allow ourselves to not go out to the objective experience, but come in when we go through these things and learn about it, understand it, and not be a tool of this mind? The mind is a tool, can be used as a tool to be used for us to create things.
Yeah.
It's I read somewhere in some book, it's a great servant but a horrible master. So yeah. And these things, so, and I guess that can be a meditation practice, just what we just did. Just go back in. Okay, let's move that there. Let's move that there. The labels and this. Okay. But is it that we are uncomfortable with silences, and we're uncomfortable with not having anything to say?
Yeah.
And I guess if you and I didn't speak, there'll be not much of a podcast if you and I just sat here and okay, or maybe you'll be interested in you guys who've got nothing to say.
Yeah, especially with the audio ones. I mean, with the visual ones, the video podcast, but when it goes on Spotify and things, and it would just be, has it frozen? Is it not working? My audio's not working.
So the audio will be an audio of two guys just being silent. Yes.
Yeah. Or one of us can just say silence.
Okay.
We're in silence now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as the Ramana Maharshi post that you posted the other day, so we can be doing our activities, whatever we're doing, washing the dishes, talking, working, and there's still silence there. So silence is not about silence is not really silence, in the way that we think about silence, because there's always what we call noise, vibration. We can hear the vibration, just the hum of the body, traffic, nature is always making. So there's noise happening, there's vibration, but we're talking about the silence of the mind. And even the mind can be there and there's still silence, let the mind be there. So it's even the label silence can be thrown out. What is silence? What is silence really?
Is it not that? Please, please clarify if you can. But is it not that we need the mind to be silenced? The mind is an appearance in the silence.
Yeah.
So even if the mind is working and thinking, we are that which is the silence with which we hear, which the mind appears. So in that sense, what Romana was talking about was that even in activity of things and objects, there is the ever-present silence, which is always is.
Yeah.
And that's what the I is. So coming from that period, coming from that silence, then even if we talked about frustrations arise, the silence is who we are. Joyful things arise, the silence is who we are. The noise from across the road, our appearances in silence. Yeah. If we understand that maybe we are the here and the silence, which all that appears in, then we can take this, and we spoke about it, taking it out of the hall and into every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
And from there, we're not coming from past and future or things that have happened. Again, we can then go into what we spoke about, creating new ways. Not from me self of knowing the past, but a new way of unknown. We don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a possibility for human beings.
Well, could we call the silence, instead of the word silent, what about the black hole of I don't know?
That's definitely a more fun phrase to use. The black hole of I don't know. Because I think straight away that brings up other words, sometimes, words that we use and maybe we don't use it enough. Extraordinary, amazing, fantastic. We use these because it's a feeling that it brings up. And when we talk about the black hole of I don't know, it's a being, but there's this energy of who you are.
Yeah.
And what is it? It's just an abundance of energy, and maybe that's even a more appropriate term than, well, for us as we're speaking.
Yeah, because when you think of it, the black hole of I don't know, it brings up infinite possibilities, and there's paradox, and we don't know what's on the other side of that black hole of I don't know. Because there is, so in terms of I think I like the word the I don't know, because how could we really know silence? If we are silence.
Is it that me doesn't know silence? The me is an appearance in the silence. When that me dissolves, or maybe we call it a break, we've had breakthrough or awakenings or whatever we call it, then the silence. So the me never experiences the silence. It's the absence of the me where the silence is felt.
Yeah. what if there is no, what if we just throw away the me?
But is it the me? Then, if we say that, is it the me? Then throwing it away.
Well, we could throw that away too.
Yeah,
we could be, and we can be the me too.
yeah.
This is the Me Too movement.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these things are done, without trying. Do you know, sometimes, I don't know if you've had, you going out with your friends, you go out with your friends one night and it's a spontaneous meeting. You've met up, let's go here. And you've had an amazing evening. But nothing was, and it just happened. And then a week later, you say, I'd like to go out again with the same friends. And you call each other up and it's not the same.
Yeah.
I think these openings are not done by you. They're spontaneous. They just happen.
Yeah.
And I think because we're in the moment, but we're not trying to be in the moment.
Yeah.
It just is. And for a moment, or it can have a moment or a while, this thing just drops and you're totally in it. But what happens then, I think the mind tries to appropriate this breakthrough and says, I had it, when in fact it was the absence of that me which allowed it to flourish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the cloud may say, oh, I had this experience, but it was the blue sky all the time, which the cloud tries to appropriate this. Oh, I was the blue sky for a bit. No, It was the absence of the blue sky, the absence of the clouds, which allowed the ever-present blue sky, which is always there. Even in the grey, if there's grey clouds, behind it, there's always the blue sky.
Yeah. Even the blue sky, is there even a blue sky? So when I think you said, you asked me this before, where is the sky? Yeah. So there's infinite possibilities. There's infinite possibilities that we can go with this. And the paradox is still go nowhere and arrive nowhere. Or arrive nowhere or end up back where we are. So as U.G. Krishnamurti said, that is the maddening thing about this this whole what we call a spiritual quest. And I think that's why, playfulness and music and things like that. Like when I'm out in nature, and when I see the animals, like the squirrels, they play. I see them playing. When they're not playing, it seems like they're either looking for food in the winter, preparing for, things like that, or they're trying to stay warm. Like when I go out there and it's very cold, I don't see a lot of the animals that I normally see. It's like they disappeared, but I imagine they're probably just getting warm somewhere. So humans seem unique in that we're able to have these discussions about our existence and about who we are. Is very strange. And as you had said before, that in certain cultures there's not even this concept of I. So where did this, that um where did this I come from? And with this idea of, and I often, so when I'm standing in the living room alone, or sometimes in the kitchen, and then there's this thought, or just this feeling of, oh well, the sense of self. So all I know is this sense of self. That's all that there is. But where does that end? And where does it begin? Like, what is this self? Because anything I see, or any experience, is still happening within this sense of self, within this experiencing factory, we can call it. So when I look at, when there's what I call an object, is still happening within this sense of self, and the experience of Ade, and the history, and the little nuances, or the concepts, and everything else is happening within this sense of self.
So I guess the invitation that we're offering to these mind bodies known as Ran, Usha, and Ade, and offering out to anybody who's listening, is to embark on these questions for themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not going to be the routes which we see, but there are many avenues to this, and you're going to find many what we call teachers, or maybe helpers in different traditions all around the world. So let's not limit ourselves to what we think we know, and have conversations about these questions. Let's go deeper with these questions and see where it will take us. And the opportunity that these questions allow us to have, because I think it takes us to ways of living that we don't know about. Maybe the fact that, I remember I was asked something about politics a while ago, and in the world you have, most countries have the right and the left. In America, it's Democrat and Republican.
Yeah.
But there must be thousands of different other ways, but we've restricted it to these two, and we've called it left and right. And if you're not this, you're not that. Maybe that's such an old way of seeing things. And that in the new way, it won't even exist, because we'll look at things in the universal human sense of interconnectedness. We know. We breathe. We know. We eat. We know. And that has no left or right. So if we can embark on these questions as individuals, I think it then takes it out into the world and how we see things, and leads to a possibility for radical change.
Yeah. And I think that is a very fruitful, if that's a name, discussion and direction to go into, because we can talk about the I am and the I in silence, and but we lead back to the same place, and there's this place where action needs to take place, right? Everyone has to eat and do things, and so I think what you said is very important because um, it is about taking this out of the studio and taking the meditation out of the studio and into life. And like, yes, the first step of knowing, having that sense of self, experiencing that, and then it gives this. It seems to give this space to, at least as Orwell said in 1984, the book, to see the truth. And when I say truth, it's a relative truth, but see the program, see the game as it's set up. It's important to see the game so that, and to see myself, Ade, in the game and how I'm reacting to the game. And although sometimes I may be saying, well, this is a lousy game and we should be doing things differently, but yet still in action, sometimes I'm doing some of the same things, you know, acting off of just this sort of reactionary response to life, to feel this sense of safety. And so the if we are if the individual is the I am as well as the individual, then a start can take place. The world, each world we can change like Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see happen in the world. And so there is this power within each person, this unique gift that we all have, that we can all explore. And this is my belief. By looking within, by allowing experimenting, allowing our authentic expression come out, questioning. And as Sila has said, and as you had said on occasion, we can plant seeds. We can go take little baby steps to make this change. You know, like what can we do today? Part of what we're doing is this podcast and the little steps that we take to prepare for the podcast, going out into nature, getting more familiar with nature, knowing, learning from nature. Like you had mentioned before, asking the cashier, how's your day going? Taking that pause and to do these little things. Like with my kids, I had my little temper tantrum, and then I talk to them after, reassuring to them that it's not your fault. This is being honest. This is dad was frustrated. Dad was reacting in this way. So kind of teaching them that it's okay both to have emotions and to share about them, and to say, hey, adults, because if I blame, then it's kind of sending the message that it's not okay to have these emotions, to snap because you're frustrated. That's what blame does. It's saying it's not because I'm not allowing those emotions, to what we call frustration or whatever it is, to be here. So yeah, like let's say if this is a story, or if we could look at it as a story or a play, we can create our own narrative. If concepts and ideas are they come out of sort of, we create things, we create experts, we create certain fields all the time, and then we create experts in that field. Then we have creativity. We know that we have imagination, and we can create a world that is beautiful, that is sustains life for all, that has equality, as a priority. A world that if there's someone that's hungry, that it becomes our responsibility to feed them. And that's something that my family has instilled within me. In the West Indian culture, someone comes to your house, you give them food. That's like one of the main things. Did you eat? And they'll keep feeding you and make sure that you that you eat enough. And so we just need to extend that to everyone. And I think we all know this. This is not like anything that's new. I think it's just we kind of have, in a way, have lost our way and been misguided as a collective. And like you said, we can just go on our own paths, walk to the beat of our own drummer and create something that makes sense to us, that feels more natural, more simplistic, more something that makes more sense,
I think in the future, it'll be a good idea if we brought someone on to speak about, the trauma which is held in the body, ancestral trauma, but a lot of time which guides how we behave in certain ways. So I think that might be an interesting topic in the future to look at as well.
Yeah.
See what our family have gone through, how it's stored in the body. So I don't know, if you know someone in your magic book of contacts.
Well, I guess who would that, like, what you mean, the scientific side of it, or is that psychology, or
I think we need to look into all of it. I mean, really,
yeah.
As a scientific, but also physiological. I know, I think it'd be an interesting topic to learn about, to go into, to find out.
Yeah, I think there could be different podcasts, and we may even have an idea, two guests. So someone talking about the physical, like the DNA aspect of it, of how these traits are passed down. And then also it could be in a separate podcast or the same, like a sort of a panel discussion. Someone like Eleonora would talk about the energetic aspect and the healing side of it as well. So yeah, that can be. And that's a very good point, because I think have noticed, and I as well, in the culture, there is a big healing movement that is going on, and some of it is sort of like anything else, money driven, and like it becomes the next fad, and people. But some of it is really authentic and can be really helpful. But overall, my hope is, the thing that I see that's hopeful is that there is in our population many people that are noticing the trauma within themselves, like really noticing, wow, why do I always react? I'm in a discussion with my significant other, and there's this exaggerated reaction that I feel in the body. Why is that so? They didn't say anything too offensive or life threatening, but I feel like my life is being threatened. So people are getting wise to this, because that's one of the great tools of social media and technologies, because a lot of information and knowledge is getting out there. So it seems like in our culture, we are now there are certain steps happening. We're becoming more aware because information, like you're getting a lot of knowledge from, all of these resources that you're getting online. So people can get historical information from Egypt and all these different places and instantly post it and write papers about it and write articles and send it online so that it can get to the masses. So now we're becoming aware. That's one step. And we're becoming aware of what's going on with ourselves. And then we are becoming aware of there's tools that I can use to heal. There's different modalities to use, and there's one that can work for whatever works for each person, and there's people that are providing that. And then with technology, you don't even have to see the person face to face. So my hope is that we're becoming aware, we're seeing the problems that are happening in the world and within ourselves, because we cannot do anything, in my opinion, or not much. It's hard to be effective with changing things in the world if we're not aware of what's going on with ourselves, because we're just in reaction mode, and we're part of that, what I'll call problem, so we're creating the same thing. So this is happening in the culture, and I think we're a part of that as well, as getting this out in the podcast. So we're getting this information out, and we're also doing the sort of work within ourselves and getting the knowledge and everything. So there's a lot of hope there, and so and people like Candace is bringing it out into the real life. Sela bringing it out into the real world, farming, doing things like this, which is great. So there are people that are doing this work. So there is hope. It's not all, there is hope.
Do you know what? Let's even leave hope, because when we talk about these things and we think of a title, we get excited about it. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah.
The conversation we have, hope doesn't come into it, does it? We don't, hope. No, we have an idea and we go, okay, let's go into that. Hope does not come into it. So we just had an online discussion now about a future episode, and we didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
There was no hope involved.
No hope.
We were just excited about learning something new. And then we think, who could we invite on? That'd be interesting, that we can learn that. What's hope got to do with any of that? It's just doing it in the moment.
Yeah. No, not even any time for hope. Imagine saying that to a kid, do you feel hopeful about this? And when they're gonna create something or being creative, and what does that mean?
So let's do what we just did. An idea came. We think, who can we learn from? Where can we go with it? And what's extraordinary energetically, what we carry, how scientists at the moment see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're carrying it energetically, and we are energetic bodies, is it transmitting then 24 hours a day with everyone we communicate with?
Yeah.
That's the case. How powerful then are our emotions and feelings if we're transmitting them constantly? And then where do we go from there?
Yeah.
That'll be very interesting to have someone to come in and talk about that.
Let's do it. And one more idea that came up with that is having a kid on the show, or a couple of kids, because and actually letting them kind of lead things. We can learn so much from the kids because, as you had mentioned before, the learning should take place from different, we learn from the elders and we learn from the children, the elders learn from the children, so it's, yeah.
You know what? Let's just do that, and maybe we'll find someone who will host it,
Yeah,
and we'll follow their lead.
exactly.
It
Yeah,
could be 7 or 8 years of age, I don't know.
yeah.
You raise a discussion topic, we'll go with you. Let's let it
Yes,
go.
that's great.
Yeah, we'll go with you. We're not going to have any agenda or an idea. Wherever you want to go,
Yeah,
whatever questions you want to ask, and it'll be interesting.
yeah,
Or there'll be something in us which wants to sway it in a direction.
yeah,
And if
yeah,
that
yeah,
does come up, we will mention it at that time.
yeah,
Okay, so that's a second idea. Let's go with that.
yeah. Yeah, you froze. You still there?
Am I back now?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah,
back
I'm still
now.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. So yeah, let's do it. We'll
We'll do that. We'll find the person.
Okay.
So I will write that in the list of titles that we have.
Okay.
I'll send it to you today, and let's see where it goes.
Okay. This was great. Yeah. This was great. And also let's check back during the week, have some more discussions, and so I want to find my aim for this week is to find one thing, just one small action to take. One of the things I think what I do want to do is I want to plant a seed. It has felt so overwhelming to do, like a literal seed, like get a little pot and put dirt and plant a seed. So that is, I'm excited to do that, to plant a seed.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my goal for the
Okay.
week.
So let's send the invitation out to all the millions who are watching right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's send the invitation right out, and let's plant some seed physically, metaphorically, spiritually. Let's plant a seed. It could be a word, a gesture, a thing, or an actual tomato seed. If you want to grow tomatoes.
Yes. Even if it's as you suggested, you brought this idea to me some time ago. Planting the seed can be doing something. It can be doing something out of your normal routine. It could be sitting under the table. Go to your kitchen table. Go sit under your table and see how it feels. It could, if you make your breakfast first or whatever the order of the breakfast, do it in the opposite order. Whatever it is. Say hi to a stranger. If you feel comfortable with it. Whatever it is. So many things that we can do. To plant a seed.
Well, Ade, it's been a pleasure again.
Same here. Yeah.
We've come up with some new ideas, so we'll let those marinate, and then we'll see where it takes us, and look forward to, I don't know who, but who we will speak to next. I'm looking forward to it, whoever it is. The one thing I definitely know that will happen is we will still be learning.
Yes. Still learning, still learning. So thank you everyone on Facebook land. Thank you to everyone watching on YouTube. Thank you to our LinkedIn people. So thank you very much.
LinkedIn.
If anyone has questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section of whatever social media platform you happen to be on, and we'll get back to you. So thanks everyone. We're gonna
Thank you.
stop the streaming. How do we